I still wake up at 5 a.m. and I still prioritize myself because I know that that is going to have a huge ripple effect on my personal and professional performance. And I can honestly sit here and say, at 42 years old, I am the healthiest and highest performing I've ever been, despite all those years ago looking on paper very high performing and very successful.
Hello, today I'm talking with and learning from Kat Thorne. Kat overcame, and she'll tell the story in the show, she overcame personal adversity. She was on a treadmill. She got married because she wasn't paying attention to life. And nearly died, her doctor said. And on the back of that, as a way of rebuilding her life, she had to make some changes to it. And so these started with a small number of habits. This year, she's on a different drive. She's trying to get fit, so she's running 10 minutes a day. And we talk about why people are not supportive, why people are negative when we try to make changes that really push us back and stop us making change. She hosts the Positive Habits podcast, where she dives into the mindset and behaviors and habits that boost energy and reduce stress. And we chat a little bit about those today. She works mainly with organizations, teams, and thousands of people inside organizations, so large, small and large groups. And she helps them pick one thing in their life that they're going to change. Just one, and change it for 21 days. That's all she gets people to commit to, and has seen this transform people's lives, transform teams, transform companies. So fantastic to get her on today and just get a little bit of inspiration about what we could do now. I know it's not the 1st of January and this isn't a New Year's resolution thing, but honestly, it's much better to do it now when the sun started shining and the summer feels like it's here, rather than in January when we're miserable. So fantastic to get Kat on. I got a lot from it. I'm sure you will too.
I'm Kat Thorne. I'm the founder of The Morning Game Changer. I work with teams around the globe to help them make one small positive habit change to positively impact their personal and professional performance.
Right. And now... It feels as though those two things are different, right? So like personal and professional, and they're not often, people wouldn't normally put them in the same bucket, and here you are and it's your business. How did you end up with these two things that normally, because people often say to me, well, I'm very different at work than I am at home. I suspect it's not true, but I mean, people tend to go, well, there's work and there's home and they're not the same. And
all right, let me ask you something. So when your alarm goes off in the morning and you hit the snooze, let's just say you hit it one time, right? You don't hit the snooze.
Never.
Okay, all right. Let me give you another example then. Do you ever check your phone within 15 minutes of opening your eyes?
Yes. So check my phone. You mean, do I go on email?
Do you look at any content?
Oh, yeah, totally. I look to see what my sleep score has been.
Okay. Excellent. Whatever you're looking at, right, that information, whether it's positive or negative or neutral, is going to somehow shape the day ahead. Mm-hmm. Let's say you haven't slept very well. So you check your sleep score and it's really low. And you can look back to last night and think, that's probably because I had too many glasses of red vino, or because I watched an extra episode of Netflix, or because I had an argument with my partner, or whatever the reason was.
Yeah.
Just even checking your sleep score and realizing that it was low is, even on a subconscious level, is going to shape how productive and you are that day. And it's going to shape your mindset for the day ahead. So gone are the days that work and home are these two separate entities. And I don't know about you, but I was definitely raised in an era where what you did at home, what was going on at home, was kind of stayed at the door of the office, if you like, virtual or physical. And you had to put on a performance for the time you were at work, and then you were allowed to go back into your personal life again. that doesn't exist anymore. And anybody that says it does is lying. So I'll tell you my backstory later, but I started the Morning Game Changer and this mission of helping teams to make one small positive habit change because I experienced firsthand the detrimental effect, and then when I rebuilt myself, the positive impact and the transformation of when you do something outside of your work life, the impact that has on every part of your life, especially how you perform at work.
Okay, I buy that. What should I do instead then of looking at my phone? Not look at my phone, obviously.
Well, you say obviously, like my job isn't to tell you what to do. You know, you're an adult. You seem like a grown man. You know what you're doing in life. It's not my job to say, don't do this, don't do that.
Because as you were saying, you know, you look at your phone and it sets the day ahead. I was thinking, does it? Does it? Sometimes the sleep score isn't bad. Sometimes it's good. And I think to myself, oh, I don't feel like I can be asked to get up and go running. Oh, actually, it looks like I've had a really good night's sleep. Right, okay, you lazy ass, get out of bed and go running. And I'll get up and go running. And there are times I go, God, I feel terrible. I look at my sleep score and it goes, yeah, you slept really badly. And I go, do you know what? I'm going to have a cup of coffee and I'm not going to run today.
But what's interesting about that, though, is that you're using some information from your sleep score to dictate your day. And what's really fascinating also about this is that I've been doing a run challenge. So I've been running every day for at least 10 minutes since the 1st of January. And I've been doing that for 2 reasons. One, because I love the way it makes me feel. I love the energy it gives me, but also because I want to show people how 10 minutes really is all you need and it's really transformative. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be running, but anything for 10 minutes that makes you feel good and gives you energy. Now, what's interesting is if you look at your sleep score and it's low and you say, oh, I haven't had much sleep, you're almost giving yourself a pass to say, oh, I don't need to go to run today, I'm just going to have a coffee. But actually, if you ran, you would get energy. I'm
laughing because last week I got up and went running and set a personal best, even though I felt awful and my sleep score was rubbish. So yeah, I agree with you. I tend not to let it dictate what I'm going to do. I'm going to probably have a rest day each week. I try to decide in the week which is the rest day. So if I've had a rest day, I'm running the next day, whatever happens.
But the reality is, Dom, is most people are not looking at their sleep score when they wake up. They're looking at their emails. They're looking at their socials. They're looking at their WhatsApp. They're looking at the not so great message from their boss. They're looking at an email that says something negative. They're looking at the money they don't have in their bank account yet, or a bill they know they've got to pay. And I'll tell you a quick story, because I think storytelling is so powerful for helping people to have these realizations in life and help them to make positive changes. So I've worked with the police on a number of occasions, and I worked with a group of superintendents. It was really interesting. And I honestly went into this group thinking, they know what they're doing. What knowledge can I possibly impart on them? Because of course they've got great habits. They're our police force. But anyway, yes. It turns out they're still human beings. And that means that they still have habits that are negatively impacting their lives and their performance. And this very brave superintendent admitted in front of all of her colleagues that the first thing she was looking at within a nanosecond of opening her eyes was the daily briefing. So I laugh and joke in my keynotes and my talks about how often we look at our phones and we've got one eye squinted shut. And I think that's our body's way of saying, you're not ready for this information. But we still look at information because this becomes so habitual for us. So she said that she was looking at the daily briefing. The daily briefing for superintendents who work in child abuse and rape are the most horrific crimes that have happened in the last 24 hours. Yeah. Now, I can see by your facial expressions, we don't even need to know what's on that report. We can imagine how horrendous that content is.
I'm feeling anxious, and it's not even my job.
And you're not even reading it. So imagine.
I'm not even reading. I'm just thinking, God, but I can see that if you feel, compelled to be in this space and this is your job, you could become really overwhelmed by, there's not enough hours in the day, there's too many people to help, I need to give more, I'm going to go to bed later, wake up earlier, dive straight into the daily. I can see how people get sucked into this.
Yeah, and this is not an isolated case. I face this every single day, and it doesn't matter if I'm working with a team in hospitality, insurance, manufacturing, it doesn't matter what country it is. This is, I think, a sign of 2025. This is how people are living. Life is faster than it's ever been before. Technology has advanced so much that we have developed a lot of really unhealthy and toxic habits, and they are really affecting people. And the reason I started this mission and ultimately my business was because I wanted to lift people out of their lives for a moment, to press pause and just to realize some of these very simple yet really powerful things. And that superintendent realized that within 15 minutes of kind of opening her eyes, she was absorbing all of this information and she wasn't mentally and physically ready for the day. So she couldn't really handle it. So if we can imagine what that does to that one human being on a Monday, then imagine they're doing it 5 days a week, 4 weeks in a month, 12 months a year. And it's not even about the superintendent or that content. Imagine an individual is doing that. And they're reading an email from a client, from a colleague. You know when you read something and it really, really rubs you up the wrong way. And I've had people who've read things on a Sunday lunchtime and it's completely ruined their roast dinner with their family. It's ruined the sleep that night. Like, we've all done it. We've all read a message or got an email or checked a WhatsApp and wished we hadn't, because we weren't in a position to do anything about it.
Yes, I can think back to the last time I did that, and I'm away with my family and they've gone to, I don't know, get something in the morning, and I've picked up my phone, I've read a thing, and I'm livid. I'm like, this message makes me so angry. And then I can see them coming back. And now I've got no time to do anything about it, and I'm just angry. And so now I delete those apps on my phone so I can't sneak a look at them. Like, it doesn't mean you can't go on email, but you have to be much more deliberate, and just that extra tension is really helpful.
Totally. And when we worked with the superintendents, so what I like to do, the way this works best, is deliver a high impact interactive masterclass or talk to a team. Usually about 60 minutes is a really good amount of time to get people thinking differently, and then get them to commit to one small commitment, one small positive habit change. And her change was to not look at the daily briefing first thing in the morning. Then after 21 days, we bring everybody back together. So we had these 2 sessions scheduled, brought all these superintendents back 3 or 4 weeks later. And she came up to me and she grabbed my arm and she said, "You've changed my life." And I said to her, "That's so lovely to hear, but I haven't changed your life. You changed your life." And she said, "Honestly, I feel so differently now. I sleep really well. I feel really focused. I feel like I've got better connections with my family. I feel like I'm more productive at work." And all because she just shifted looking at that content from, I don't know, maybe 6:15 in the morning when she's literally just, her alarm's gone off, to maybe 8 o'clock when she's actually, she's got up, she's showered, maybe she's done 10 minutes of exercise, maybe she's had a coffee, she's had breakfast, she's had a chance to chat to her family. And this for me is literally what I call the morning game changer. It's just making one tiny shift that seems so insignificant, and to have this huge ripple effect, because it's not just now that she feels better because she's not looking at that content the minute she opens her eyes, but it's like she's having a better day. She's going to be better at home. She's going to be better at work. It's huge. And I guess one of my challenges is I can't tell this quickly enough to enough people, which is why I love coming on podcasts. You can see how passionate I am. And you can also, now I've explained it through a story, you can see the power.
Yeah.
But it's such a huge challenge in our society that there's so much work to be done.
And is that because, I mean, even if you pick up your phone and you just read the news, you know, because negativity is so much more, you know, if it bleeds, it leads, you know, it's just miserable. Like I don't listen to the news anymore or buy a newspaper because it's just miserable.
Yeah.
Is the iPhone to blame? Has this made it, you know, because you used to have to get up and make a cup of tea. Most people don't have TVs in their bedroom. You know, is it?
What now? Now you're saying most people don't, or most people do?
Most people don't.
Based on what information do you know that? Most people I know have them in their bedroom.
Do they? Okay, well, there you are then.
But an interesting theory, though, because you don't, I assume.
No. I've got a snip that gives me a higher likelihood of Alzheimer's, so I spend my life trying to optimize sleep. And so I have a dark room at 18 degrees and I have no TV in the room. If I want to watch TV, I go downstairs and watch TV.
When you make this live, you should put a poll out to see who has a TV in their bedroom. I think you'd be surprised. You know, they did a study in 2019. They asked 300,000 people from 30 different countries whether they checked their phone within 15 minutes of opening their eyes. And 80% of people told the truth and said yes. I suspect it's much higher. But I meet people every single day. Bearing in mind, I've been doing this nearly 3 years. I've worked with thousands of people, lots of different teams, lots of organizations, lots of countries. And yet I hear every single day people talking about how they're watching TV with their families or their partners and they're both on their phones. Then they go up to the bedroom, put the TV on, and then looking at their phones again. And for me now I've gone through from being somebody who behaved like that to somebody who, for me now, that's completely alien. I think that a lot of people are still are in that place where they haven't realized, because life is so fast and we're living on autopilot so much of the time, they haven't realized the impact that that's having on their lives. And
so 4 years ago then?
8 years ago.
What hell were you in and why?
So in 2016, my whole life blew up. In fact, I'll reframe it. I mean, I blew my life up. There's nobody to blame except me for what I did. But I definitely at the time, I wanted to blame everyone else. So I was 34 years old. I was working for this incredible tech company. Like, I had an amazing career. I was traveling around the world. I was managing lots of different teams. I definitely felt very, very important. And I felt like I'd kind of made it. And I was planning, you know, this beautiful wedding in Greece. I had great friends and family. Like, I had everything. I just bought my first home in Bath. And within sort of days almost of this kind of event, I lost it all. And what happened, and I show this photo in my talks of me in Norway, because it was just a few days after this photo was taken where I was on this work trip. And I woke up one morning and I literally had no feeling in my body whatsoever. And I went to the doctor and he basically said that I was close to having a heart attack, and he was surprised I hadn't already had one.
What, you'd lost the sense of touch?
Yeah, I had no feeling. Like, I couldn't feel my legs, I couldn't feel my arms. And I was completely terrified. And it's what I talk about now is that moment, and I guess the months and somewhat the years after that happened, everything unraveled. And I feel like that was my wake-up call, because it was the moment where my body said to me, you cannot carry on this lifestyle. And I look back to, and I talk about very openly now about my habits, because the way that I was living my life from the moment I opened my eyes to the moment I closed them was so toxic and so unhealthy, yet so normal. So I didn't know any different. So I used to wake up every morning. I used to snooze my alarm. Every single alarm function has a snooze button, which I just think's insane. Like now I look back and I think, why is every single alarm function encouraging us to snooze? Because it's really, really unhealthy. But at the time, I never questioned, why did I snooze 4-6 times every morning? I didn't think... I didn't have enough space in my mind.
Instead of sleeping solidly for another hour.
But honestly, Dom, I meet people who say to me, I have 9 alarms. Imagine how stressful it is. Imagine. It almost makes my heart race just thinking about it now. And that's what I used to do to my heart. Like my heart would be beating so fast every single morning. So I didn't sleep well. I never stopped to think, hang on a minute, why don't I sleep well? This isn't good. I feel exhausted. Like I literally couldn't open my eyes. Yeah. So then I would grab my phone, like 80 to 99.9% of the population. I'd grab my phone. I'd be stressing myself out. Like a lot of people tell me now they doom scroll, but I wasn't really doom scrolling. I was just making myself very alert about all of the deadlines, all of the projects, all of the responsibilities, all of the meetings. Like I was weighing myself down and I hadn't even got out of bed. And then I would be so stressed and so overwhelmed because of these 2 habits that I would then be grabbing and reaching for any kind of caffeine. Sometimes I used to drink Red Bull before anything else. I know, but gee, I know.
And then I suspect not going to bed early and not taking any exercise probably. And then the whole thing is just on this vicious cycle.
Yeah. So, and to think that I'm abnormal is a misconception, because I think it's so easy to fall into these patterns. So I would sign up for gyms and then never go in them. So I would have these intentions. Like most of us, we're intelligent human beings. We know it's good to move our body. We know it's good to eat well. But we have this side of us, this other voice almost, don't we? If you've read The Chimp Paradox, where, we can sabotage ourselves so easily. So
yes.
I had a really unhealthy relationship with exercise from a child. So exercise was something that you did to get thin, and it was something that was hated at school for me. So I didn't grow up with any positive role modeling around exercise. So I knew it was good for me, but then just kind of, like I said, sign up for gyms, but never go in them. So I had the intentions, but never followed through with it. And then things like food and alcohol, it was just... I knew that I needed to eat food for fuel, but I didn't see it as connecting it to my productivity or to my performance, because it had never sort of, again, perhaps never been taught, never been role modeled. So I just used to eat as and when, whatever. And that was really unhealthy. Alcohol, again, I'd be so highly strung and stressed by Friday, which is why I get quite frustrated now where people go, happy Friday, let's have a drink. Because I think for me now, it's a really unhealthy way to live life. Is like to drag yourself to Friday and then to celebrate by drinking loads of alcohol, which then affects your weekend and then the week ahead. But again, that was just this cycle. And running all the time. I love how you're finding this so funny.
Well, because you Friday night, then you drink alcohol, then the day which the sleep that you could have caught up on Friday into Saturday, you do sleep, but you don't sleep very well. I got a thing called 8 Sleep, which sits on top of the bed, and they said to me a couple of years ago, would I take part in one of their studies? So I said yes, and so I had a sleep coach for a while. And the lady said, you're awake all the time. And I said, what do you mean I'm awake? Of course I'm not awake, I'm asleep. She said, no, I'm looking at your data. I'm looking at your data, and you're in the sleep cycle awake. Has your wife partner ever told you in the morning that your breath smells? And I said, yes. She said, you need to tape your mouth up. You need to sleep with your mouth taped up. So I now, for the last 3 years, I've slept with mouth tape on.
Wow.
And I sleep way much better. Right. And so that, because I said I'm, obsessed about sleep quality, but that, I can see on my sleep tracking data, on the Aura Ring or whatever, you you drink on a Friday night, you might be in bed, but the quality of sleep's rubbish. And so that whole cycle then repeats itself. The weekend when you would have the chance to recover, you don't. And then you're not refreshed for Monday.
No, but also this idea that, because there's this whole societal, I think, concept that we wait for Fridays to relax, we wait for our holidays to relax, we wait for Christmas to relax. And actually, couldn't we flip that around? And I feel like now I'm building a life where I don't have to wait for things to relax, and I don't wait for days off, as it were, or holidays to do things I love or things that give me energy. Actually, for me, that's the power of incorporating positive habits into daily life. I describe them as roots of a tree. So if you think how a tree blows in the wind and storms, and for me, positive habits are our roots. Like, for just day-to-day mental and physical preparation for the unexpected things that happen in life, but also for the big stuff when it comes and slaps you around the face, whether that's at work or at home. And I think most people do not have the roots of their tree, so then they just fall over. And we are in the middle of a global mental health pandemic. And I think so much of this could be alleviated with one small positive habit change.
Different for different people? Or do you think it's not looking at your phone for most people?
I think the phone plays a major part for everybody. But of course, some people have really good phone habits, and that's great. And some people look at their phone first thing and look at things that make them laugh, or maybe messages from family overseas. And it's not for me to judge and say everybody shouldn't look at their phone in the morning. It's for you to say, how does that activity make me feel? Yeah. And if it's not good, then it's something to look at, right? But I think it's personal for different people. There are, of course, some scientific habits that have been proven to give us energy, that make us feel really good. And, if you're, somebody who runs regularly like me, then that that's one of them. Exercise for sure. But I prefer to call it movement because, again, I think exercise has a lot of negative connotations. But I think it's really fun to just be curious. And what I think is really, people make fun of me now. Because I get a lot of fun, people making fun of the fact that I run for 10 minutes.
Do you ever run longer than 10 minutes?
Yeah, I do.
Because there's a thing, like just do 10 minutes, right? And then if you feel like it, you keep going for a bit longer.
Totally. So I do sometimes run for longer, for sure, like at least once or twice a week. But when I started running for 10 minutes, people were sending me messages online and, kind of private messaging saying, it's ridiculous, 10 minutes isn't going to do anything. I even tested it with hotel receptionists as well. In fact, I didn't intentionally test it. They were just very judgmental. So, sometimes when you stay in hotels and they give you like really big keys with like big blocks of wood, so you can't possibly lose the key, but you also can't take them out running. So I've tried this both overseas and here in the UK, and remove the word quick or 10 minutes, just said, I'm going out for a run. Can I just give you my key? And obviously then going out for 10 minutes and coming back. And it's happened every single time. They kind of either look at their watch or just look at me and go, well, I'll let you on. What do you think they say?
Well, they'll go, was that it? Or are you okay? Because you must have got injured running around the block or something. It's just, but it's, yes. People have a sense that 10 minutes isn't enough, I guess.
Yeah. Where did we get that from? And when I say this in talks and to teams, I say, how long do you need to exercise? Because the thing is, most people know what gives them energy. So the top answer when I say what positively impacts you, what habits positively impact you, exercise is always the biggest answer every single time. So I say, okay, so what's good for you, what gives you energy, what's holding you back? Time. Okay, how much time do you need? And then you go around the room and people say an hour and a half, 45 minutes, 30 minutes. And it's because, and then I say to people, what book did you read that in? Or where did you get that information? No one can tell me a source where it's set, where they read, oh, it's optimal to do X amount of exercise. And you know what the funny thing is of course I'm sure there are studies that say this amount of exercise is, optimal. But the reality is, Dom, we live in the real world and people are doing not 45 minutes, not 30 minutes, not 1 hour, they're doing nothing. So for me, 10 minutes is something.
It's way better than nothing.
It is. But again, our brains want to tell us it's not good enough. And that's what the hotel receptionists are doing to me. And that's what other people are doing to the people I've worked with when they start exercising for 10, 15 minutes. Like, it was hilarious. This guy sent me a WhatsApp. He's in his 60s. He was the owner of a company I did a talk at in Bristol, actually, recently. And he said, Kat, I'm loving the running. I'm doing like 10, 15 minutes every day. I'm feeling so great. But do you know what my neighbour said to me? He like yelled out the window. He said, hey, Jim, I see you've been running every day. But how come you only go for like 15, 20 minutes? How come you don't go for longer? And like, why is that the auto response rather than, hey, Jim, you've been going running every day. That's amazing. It's so great. You look so good for it.
Let me interrupt the conversation just for a minute because I don't want you to miss this. My new book, Mind Your Fucking Business, is out on Amazon. If you're thinking yet another business book, I think you're wrong. This is actually a blueprint to cutting through the noise and achieving unparalleled success for you. It's based on 10 years of business coaching, spotting similar problems that people have had and coming up with real world solutions. If it's supercharging sales, if it's mastering talent acquisition, building a powerhouse brand, cultivating a company culture that breeds success, then this book is a ticket to your transformative journey. It's filled with practical tools and frameworks that I use every single day with my clients as part of their coaching program. If you want to take your business from good to great, look, you can go to Amazon and you can buy it, or you can click the link in the show notes and head over to monkhouseandcompany.com. I'll send it to you today. I'll send you a copy for free. I want to help you build a fantastic business. Now, back to the conversation. I do think there's a Britishness about some of this, I think.
Could be.
I think in the US, when somebody says, do you know what, I'm going to build the biggest company in the world, people go, good for you. Well done. Excellent. And here people go, you're really? And like, it's just, almost, like, because the guy yelling out of his window, oh, you fat slob, why don't you come with me? It's like, not to be judgmental of the bloke who's yelling out of his window, of course, but, it's just like, why do we have to be negative to people all the time? Why do we, just like, instead of being positive? And in the US, there's that immediate positivity, yeehaw, and people are, over here, it's just not like that at all. It just seems to be, tall poppy syndrome, like, well, let's cut you down and make you more like me, which is, not going running. Like, people wanting to...
I agree. I do also think this is a human being trait, though, that we have such high expectations and we want to always be achieving more. So there's maybe an innate thing in us as human beings, because I've experienced this with international teams as well. Right. So I know it's not just a UK thing, but I do appreciate your comment and think there's some truth in that. But even internationally, I think there's this feeling like when it's never good enough. So it's got to be at least something that's worthy. So it's got to be at least 30 minutes or 45 minutes, or it's not going to do any good at all.
And then it sets the bar so high, you do nothing.
Exactly. And do you know what's amazing about this? And it's why I'm really pushing the 10 minutes concept, because the amount of people that suddenly give themselves permission that 10 minutes, because I've said it's okay, and who am I anyway to say it's okay? It's not up to me to say it's okay, but because I've normalized it and because I'm now publicly sharing it despite the trolling, other people are going, oh my goodness, like I can actually find 10 minutes because 10 minutes is doable. And it's kind of coming back to the very first point we had when we started this episode about, how are personal and professional connected. And it's They absolutely are. And because people are living such busy lives, they leave themselves to the end of the pile. Like last thing at night, people try to do, they might try and squeeze in a 10-minute YouTube yoga or whatever. And it just doesn't happen because they've got no energy left because they've spent it all day on everything and everyone else. And that's why I love the mornings. And then people go to me, oh, but Kat, I'm not a morning person. And I say to them, but nor am I. But I still wake up at 5 a.m. and I still prioritize myself because I know that is going to have a huge ripple effect on my personal and professional performance. And I can honestly sit here and say at 42 years old, I am the healthiest and highest performing I've ever been, despite all those years ago looking on paper very high performing and very successful.
And how does this, so we talked about the individual superintendent, but when you do this work with teams, how does it manifest itself in a team, in a business? You get a team together, everybody makes one change. What do you do? Do you get them to tell each other what they're going to do so they support each other? And there's some public...
Yeah, definitely. So it depends on the team, on the size of the team. I run these interactive talks and programs. So I use a tool so everybody can share anonymously. So whether there's 1,000 people or 100 people, everybody can share without necessarily feeling very vulnerable. And these habits are... they're quite, I would say, well documented and discussed. So they're things like, having a home for your phone or doing 10 minutes of movement in the morning. It might be having a sleep schedule, like actually setting a time to go to bed or waking up or whatever it is. And people are free to choose what they are. The really interesting thing, what happens in the talk, so within the 60 minutes, people, because I'm asking them questions and they're thinking about a day in the life of themselves, they're starting to notice the correlation between the things that they're doing and how they're feeling. And then, through a mixture of kind of that interactivity and storytelling, then towards the end, I say to them, okay, so what one change are you going to commit to doing for the next 21 days? So I invite them there and then, right? So we've been on this journey. We've talked, you've shared openly. What are the habits that are affecting you? What are the things that make you feel really good? And I say to people, this isn't good enough. When I get them to rate how well they're looking after themselves, when people start scoring a 1 or a 2 or a 3, and I say to like 1,000-person team, is this good enough? And what's the impact of people not looking after themselves? It's not like all of that stuff stays outside of the business. They're bringing that into the business because, as we talked about before, if you don't sleep very well, you're going to be a bit miserable at work. You're not going to be as productive. You're not going to be able to make as good decisions. You're probably not going to be as nice to your colleagues. You're definitely not going to be as nice to your family when you get home. So even like an isolated habit like sleep is going to have this huge compound effect on the amount of revenue the business is going to make, the customer service that's going to be delivered that day. So yeah. I think I'm on a mission to show organizations that the better people look after themselves, the better it is for everyone. The company performs better, families are better, health is better, everything is better. But I think organizations, despite their efforts, they're just going about well-being and performance in the wrong way. I think everybody has these initiatives and they are not producing any ROI.
And so doing it this way does work?
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it's the results are there. So once we get everybody to commit to making one small change, we set them the 21-day challenge. So they got 21 days. They're doing it as a team because they've held each other accountable. And there's lots of different ways that we support teams during that 3 or 4 week period. The real power is when we bring people back together again, because then we say, how did it go? And invariably, people have different experiences with how it's gone. And I think when you start to hear people saying, it's changed my life, if there's somebody in that team that didn't get on as well, or maybe didn't even get off the starting line, they're totally re-engaged by their colleagues then. And then it has this domino effect in a team.
Yes.
But I'll be honest with you, and I put a post out on this on LinkedIn recently. I haven't until this point thought about how I scale the impact. So I would create an impact with a team, then I would go and work with another team and another team. Because in reality, organizations are complicated places when it comes to people and implementing, more kind of long-term behavior change. So for the last 6 months, I've been heads down working with an incredible software. And I've just recently launched this whole new behavior change journey, which involves a digital program, and it's called Positive Habits for Performance. And this is, I think, going to change the game now, because there's only so much you can do when you've got people kind of live, whether that's in Teams or in person. And what I really want to do is give teams and organizations the tools so they can keep creating this behavior change for themselves. And the way it's been designed is that it's going to span across personal and professional habits, because there are lots of habits that we have within work that are really negatively impacting people as well.
Yep.
And so I think it's really important that teams have the opportunity to talk about what some of those things are, that's facilitated without the need of a physical person to be present. And this whole experience is called playing, because learning should be more experimental, more fun. And I've, in the last few weeks, I've watched teams playing my workshops in front of my own eyes, both in person and virtually. And it's incredible to see that I've, together with this organization, created something that could have more impact than being with me in person.
Oh, because of the software so powerful?
Yeah, it's a mixture. I mean, I'm not going to give all the credit to the software, but it definitely is. It definitely is that too. But I think it's very cleverly designed, the way the activities are structured, the way it gets teams to all be present. So one of the unhealthy habits that you've probably also noticed within teams as well is this obsession with, when we are on a call, we're secretly doing something else.
Everybody's always doing that.
And
That's
sometimes
why I
not
hate
even
doing video stuff.
Yeah. And sometimes they're not even secretly doing it. They're obviously doing it.
I did a session with a client, and one of the guys had his camera. I said, "Does equipment not work?" And he went, No, I just don't want to turn my camera on, because if I turn my camera on, you'll know I'm doing my email. I went, "Well, I know you're doing your email now because you've told me." I said, Either be on the call or get off. I had an executive team that honestly argued for an entire day about, should you be allowed to take your phone into a meeting? Should you be allowed to be on your laptop, on your phone, in a meeting, doing email whilst in a meeting? And it was because we had some of them who said, either be in the meeting or don't come. And we had another group who used meetings, and they said yes to any meeting that they got invited to, because if they were in a meeting, you couldn't disturb them. And so being in a meeting was how they created undisturbed time to get work done. And they said, if we can't work in meetings, we won't get all our work done. And you can just see how these behavioral patterns have grown up in an organization. And you say it out loud and it sounds absolutely ridiculous. But honestly, this team for a day argued about what meeting etiquette was going to be in their business, because they said, we've got to fix this because it's driving everybody demented and we need to fix it. And in the end, they argued their way through to no tech in a meeting, and you don't have to say yes, and you can go first and then leave. And if the meeting's crap, you can leave, and a whole load of things that we're trying to fix some of the habits that, but some of these people were just in meetings 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, do an email and not really being in the meeting. Just awful for everybody.
And you know what? I really sympathize with these people. And you're going to ask me about a book recommendation. I'm just going to throw it in here because it's relevant to what I'm going to say. So Gary Vee's got a brilliant book called 12 and a Half. I don't know if you've read it.
No, I haven't.
And he talks about different leadership principles. And one of them is empathy. And he tells this really good story of one of his colleagues, very junior colleagues, posted something on Twitter. And the client said to him, "Oh, we're really unhappy." I can't remember what she tweeted, but really unhappy about this tweet, and we want you to fire her. And he said, "If I fire her, how's she going to learn?" And so he didn't fire her. And actually, I think in the end, he stopped. I can't remember if he stops working with the client, but he basically in this chapter talks about, rather than reacting to something someone's done, we should try to come at it at why did they do that? And what can we do to help them, to educate them, to support them? So when you tell me things like what you just said, there's a part of me that wants to just feel so frustrated and so angry, because I've also experienced it myself. But then there's this big part of me now that's learning that we've created a culture where people feel like they need to do that, and they're so into doing that they've stopped realizing that it's really unhealthy. And we've created a culture, and I was definitely somebody who was doing this. Like, I'm the queen of multitasking. I can be on a call with you whilst I'm finishing a report, whilst I'm doing this, whilst I'm doing that. So, and that multitasking habit like nearly gave me a heart attack, which is why now I'm trying to be as present in everything I'm doing. Like, my phone is on airplane mode now because I want to be 100% with you in this podcast episode.
I think the observation you made earlier about on your phone and watching TV also puts people that, in a meeting and doing their email. But I also find that one of the things I spend a lot of time with teams doing is, how do we bring constructive conflict into the meeting, right? And I think what happens often is I disagree with you, so I don't tell you I'm going to disagree with you. What I do is I pick up my phone and I start doing, in a meeting, I start doing something else. Or the meeting's now not very interesting for me, so I pick up my phone and I do something else. Instead of saying, guys, rabbit hole, boring, can we talk about the important things? So instead of actual conflict, we just pick up our phone and check out. And so it's both a habit that we learn all the time, but it's also it's easier than doing the right thing as well. And it feels like if I read an email, it feels as though I'm doing something valuable. Whereas in fact, saying, guys, this is really dull, like, can we talk about something useful, would be the thing to do.
Yeah. Do you know what, Dom? I think a lot of people have these light bulb moments when I'm talking to them. And I can give you so many examples of, especially men who have either said there and then, or come up to me after, or messaged me on LinkedIn after and said, I didn't realize I was doing this. And it's just clicked. So I remember this one guy, he said, I feel really ashamed. And I said, why? And he said, because you've just made me realize that every night I'm putting my 3-year-old in the bath, I'm sitting on the toilet and I'm scrolling on Instagram. And I think anybody who's listening to this, it's not about judging ourselves or judging other people. It's about recognizing that we have a really hard time to be present. We find it really hard to give people our attention. And I think the challenge when we don't give people or business or teams or colleagues or whoever it is we're with our attention is that it breaks connections.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big reasons why I don't know if we can even call it a marriage because it got annulled. It was so short. I mean, we're talking weeks, and it's taken me years of therapy to be able to say that publicly, so we can laugh about it now. But one of the reasons why I got married to somebody I shouldn't have got married to, and then, had to go through the annulment and all of the shame and embarrassment that came with that, was because I was running so fast in my life that I wasn't actually paying attention. I was just, running on this kind of story of this is what you should do at this stage of life. But at the same time, I think if you are not present with the people that you care about and the colleagues you work with, over time, it's like if you think about connections as kind of tight cords,
mm-hmm.
They loosen and they weaken. And I often think about this when people separate or they get divorced or affairs and things. I think about these things don't happen overnight. They're happening quietly for a long period of time. And they're happening because our attention is not on those things. We're not spending enough time focusing on those things. So people get really shocked, if someone turns around and says, I want to divorce, like it came out of nowhere. But if we're honest with ourselves, and it's really hard to do because it's a very bitter pill to swallow, if we're honest with ourselves, we can look at ourselves and say, well, actually, my behavior, my attention, my habits have been contributing to whatever this scenario is. And that's exactly what happened to me. And that's why it's been very difficult to rebuild from that. But the greatest wake-up calls in life are the greatest lessons. And what's amazing now is that I'm getting to see, the good thing that came out of such a horrific experience. I'm getting to see people having these light bulb moments, making these shifts in their lives, becoming better parents, becoming better colleagues, businesses performing better. Like we've had one organization that's had a 6-figure increase in the year where we ran the program with them. And it's incredible to see businesses performing better, both in terms of the bottom line, but also just people being better. Like people are the greatest asset to an organization.
And you can stack these habits.
Absolutely. But you don't want to lead with that, because if I went into a talk and I said, right, you're going to start 10. Yeah, you're going to, in the next 6 months, you're going to do 10. No. And that's what's so great about this concept is just start with one. And if it's just 10 minutes, it's suddenly doable. And I think in a world where everything is so fast and so noisy, and if you think about the typical person, Dom, most people are over-consuming and underproducing. Most people are consuming way more information than maybe the brain was ever intended for. And when do we, even those moments where there could be 5 minutes of silence, like when your partner goes to the toilet and you've paused Netflix, or when you're in a restaurant and they're parking the car, you're waiting for a train, everybody is filling those moments, aren't they?
I am filling those moments with an audiobook or a podcast.
And that's lovely. But then when is the time for space? And lots of people say that, and I love that. And I think we should always be learning and growing. But one of the things I think we could benefit from, and I know this from personal experience, is just having some space. Just 2 minutes, 5 minutes. But it's a habit of filling the space.
Cold plunge.
Yeah,
it's tough to do anything else in a cold plunge.
It is. You can't.
I am also reminded of the BBC series, radio series by Michael Mosley, where he Just One Thing, I think it's called. And so it's a whole series of habits, and I think there was 10 habits in the first series, one of which was over 65, 50% of people who have a fall are dead within a year, something like that. Terrible statistic. Anyway, his thing is when you brush your teeth, just do it on one foot. Do your left foot in the morning and your right foot in the afternoon. And everyone brushes their teeth for 2 minutes in the morning and the evening. And that's enough to protect people from falling downstairs and breaking their hip and dying, right? And, so things like that, or, have a hot bath, sleep better, or do 30 press-ups a day, or, just one, these are just things you can do. And none of these things take a lot of time. So I think you're on to a winner. Do you have any other book recommendations?
I can think of so many. I think one of the authors I really love to read a lot of is Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's written a lot of great things. As I said, 12 and a Half by Gary Vee. Obviously, The Chimp Paradox is one of my favourite reads. Yeah, I love reading, and I think it's funny because it was the very first habit that I started when this all happened. And yet I used to just read trashy magazines or novels on holiday. And my reading habit has opened up this whole world of benefits, I guess, like confidence, like new thoughts, new ideas. The more, when I started my business, like a lot of people who start out on their own or take any kind of risks, you have so many limiting beliefs and doubts. And the more I read, the more confident I became, the more I could quieten those thoughts and really get control of them. So I would, I think reading is one of the greatest habits. It's incredible.
When both of our kids are 10 and 9, I think there are times that they think that they live in a terrible house because at the minute there's no TV, and that forces them to either play outside or read a book or something like that, which they feel they're hard done by. But my 9-year-old at the minute, the biggest challenge is making sure she's actually asleep before we go to bed, because she'll just say, I'm just going to read one more chapter, one more chapter. And she'll be up till 1 o'clock in the morning. And then she is properly awful the next day if she hasn't had enough sleep from the moment she wakes up. So fab. Kat, where can people get a hold of you? Where's the best place to get you on? What's your website? What's your podcast? Where are you on LinkedIn?
So my website is katthorne.com. My podcast is called the Positive Habits Podcast. LinkedIn, I'm Kat Thorne with an E on the end. I'm on Instagram, The Morning Game Changer. I would love to hear from anyone that wants to explore working together. I think this is the future, and I think this is only going to become more and more of a priority.
Kat, thank you for coming on and sharing your one habit to change people's lives and change their business. It's been fantastic talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on.